Live from Southern California, this is the Jim Rome Show.
Welcome to the program. Always an honor to keep the chair warm for the Hall of Famer. We're presented by FanDuel. Day 2 of the, dare I say, Summer Spectacular. I am Brian Weber. I'm amazed they let me back into the studio after all the fun we had yesterday. So let's maintain that momentum at 1-800-636-8686. Interaction every hour, 20 past the hour. Traffic and weather together. So hit me up on the X platform. That's BW Weber, Weber with 2 B's. Because this is my last time in the jungle, and it could be the last time forever, ever. But I'm on a per paragraph renewal deal. If all things come together, maybe you have to deal with me around the holidays. And I'm saying all this to say I have 19 hours of content. I'm going to cram in our 3 hours together, but I will be mindful of the interaction, especially because the live chat was entertaining and also in many ways just mind-blowing. You people are very interesting. Sadly, we are still on LeBron. Watch. But because I can find these topics as tedious as you do, I spent some time last night and this morning coming up with a new way of framing what's going on with the King. We'll jump right in with that momentarily. World Cup quarterfinals getting underway without Team USA. We'll talk about what the lasting image and memories of the United States men's national team should be in 40 minutes. I understand the NFL is king. I am not going to be zigging when the world is zagging. We're less than 12 days away from the start of training camp. So I'll pose this question. Should we be buying the concept the Cowboys are legitimate playoff contenders, one of the most improved teams in all of football? What? And if I'm talking football, I'm going to focus on campus. We had a great conversation yesterday with Ralph Russo of The Athletic. A reminder, if you miss any portion of any program, you can listen anytime on the podcast using Big 12 Media Days as the catalyst to jump right in. Look forward to the fall. We'll do it again today, hour number 2, when I'm joined by an old friend, Pete Fiutak, collegefootballnews.com. Final hour, in addition to the NBA I'm going to cover here. We will take it live to Vegas for the start of Summer League. We don't care about that. We care about the conversation with Kurt Helin that's upcoming in the last hour of the show of NBCSports.com. No beef segment. Blame me, even though the King of Smack has given me authorization, not just me, any fill-in host, to do the segment. I try to be transparent, and I'm not just groveling like I normally do, and I want to get to the LeBron take in 10 seconds. I don't feel comfortable doing that segment because it's Jim's and Jim's only, and against my better judgment, I did wade into the chat when I got home last night. And let me just say, that is a beef stew to itself. That thing is a bouillabaisse. So we don't have the tower of beef. We don't have that kind of format, but you folks are going to have your own barbecue going on for the rest of the program. And looking ahead with interaction now 18 minutes away. Sometimes I have to think for the collective as a clone. Do not send me any interaction about the great equalizer. I am aware of this headline. Michigan hits nearly 1,000 cases of diarrhea causing parasite as more people are infected across several states. That is not humorous. That is not show fodder. If you feel the need to pick on somebody, come at me. I'm Buddy Hackett. It's a mad, 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 mad world. 1-800-636-8686. I'm also aware of the Mark Cuban story, and I consume a lot of sports media, along with a lot of pizzas. So driving in, flipping around, I heard other hosts discussing it. And if you're not aware of the particulars, I can do it in 30 seconds. This just in, Mark Cuban does not seem pleased with how things have worked out since he decided to sell controlling interest of the Mavs to the Adelson family and the governor. I know Jim would have a lot of fun with that were he here. But the litigation hasn't even started. This is just a report from Dallas. And secondly, what's the topic? And I know I can meander a bit, but it's my job after all. I do give some thought to the roadmap. And I'm reminded of the best advice I got a million years ago when I got into sports talk. What's the topic? Do you just want me to read you the particulars of all of the ways the Cuban feels like he's been wronged? And to me, if I had to come up with a topic, I think he's to use the wrestling term because I've not talked nearly enough. Squared circle and old school professional wrestling. The one-man gang ain't walking through that door. He's trying to fade the heat. He doesn't want the continued fallout of the debacle of the gift of Luka Doncic by Nico Harrison to the Lakers to blow back on him, but did not want you to think that lazy Magoo was just going to LeBron because he needed it as a crutch. So, if I'm going to be consistent and not contradict myself more than I normally do, what is the topic when we are examining LeBron's latest decision? Well, we have a degree of continuity. Yesterday was an anniversary. 16 years ago, LeBron announced he was taking his talents to South Beach. And as I watched that video be replayed, it does remind me that we feel like, say, Alexi Lalas has emerged as the most polarizing broadcaster of all time. And some of it, I think, is by design. You heard him on the podcast with Jim. If you haven't, go check it out after the program, or you can watch it on YouTube. Alexi is a very bright and calculated guy, and he realizes in a 5 million channel universe, you got to stand out. Jim Gray, however, I don't think had a plan. And I was watching Jim, I'm going, okay, if we're going to do most polarizing broadcasters of all time, Jim Gray, just batting his eyes at LeBron, stood out as somebody who I don't think realized how much he was generally detested by the sporting public. But since we had that decision, how did that moment, for which LeBron understandably got crushed for not taking into account how callous it seemed to betray the fans in his hometown area, he should have informed them first, but it was also foreshadowing that he was going to turn everything into content. That, in retrospect, looks fairly tame because what's going on now is much more crass, much more unseemly, and much more just a flex that he, in fact, is the king. So, as I mentioned, friends of the program, Bob Myers, former Warriors GM, and Jim has a great deal of respect for him, as he should, with all the titles won in the San Francisco Bay Area, now part of the front office in Philadelphia, went on whatever Rich Paul's show is called. I'm not going to give him a free plug. I'm Brian Weber. No plug-o or payola for me as a fill-in host. If you want to express an opinion, it's 1-800-636-8686. Interaction coming up in less than 15 minutes. And because this is the mixed martial arts show of record, Conor McGregor's getting back in the octagon on Saturday. What are reasonable expectations for a man who's had a lot of free time, a man who has mixed his passion and skills with pharmacology and in many ways points out the greatest flaw of the UFC, although they have a license to print money these days. That's coming up. When a guy like Bob Myers feels the need to go on the Rich Paul show, and grovel is a strong word, and I respect Bob a great deal. I'm not trying just to be a guy looking for piñatas to bang away at to get cheap heat, as I throw you another wrestling turn of phrase. But for Bob to go on that show and Shark Tank style pitch LeBron, it just seemed beneath him. Now, I know why he did it, because he's trying to be as effective with his messaging as possible. And at this stage, he's a sales guy. And as the son of a sales guy, one of my earliest memories, I have to be about 6 or 7, my old man just kept saying to me, you got to ask for the order. I don't know what that means. I'm just trying to eat more Cheetos. You got to ask for the order. And that has been so beaten into my head. And as you get older, you do realize all of life is sales. Your relationship, you're selling yourself, and you're looking for something in return. Your job, how are you going to get that raise you want? You would think it'd be performance-driven. Most of it comes down to perception and relationships. So Bob is out there selling LeBron, and by participating in that show, he is also letting the whole world know, LeBron, I am signaling to you, you're in charge. Because LeBron wasn't there, right? Where is LeBron? We don't know. I haven't checked the gram lately. He was in the south of France a couple weeks ago with the reunion with the 2016 Cavs that everyone thinks that's the tea leaf. He's going back home. He's been spending a lot of time on the golf course. But for someone with the stature, credentials, and resume, along with the bandwidth, intellectually, Bob Myers is a very bright guy. For Bob to go on that show, it tells you where we are in modern sports, and I am completely pro-player, pro-talent, for lack of a better term, but it was just a weird look optically and kind of strange, but it's all part of LeBron's grand design to maximize attention. And I mentioned the Cowboys not because somebody whispered in my ear, hey, in lieu of talking about Jerry Lewis in 1962, why don't you try to have a wider audience come through the door? The reason I focused on the Cowboys in that preview, and we'll get there in the third hour, is I sincerely believe, begrudgingly, they've had a very good offseason, especially in the area that they statistically could not get worse in, their defense, and that's coming up. So I'm from the mindset of say what you mean what you say. That way you don't have to be vigilant. I'm kind of smart, but I'm not that smart. And remember, what the hell did I say yesterday before you go in direct flip-flop land? So LeBron at this stage not only is, and I'm going to link him to Jerry Jones, who's just craving for attention, not only does he want the continued approval and the gaze of strangers, and why not? When you have more money than generations from now could spend, when you're the all-time leading scorer in the history of the NBA, when you know you can't get to Jordan and the 6 rings, and plus it's never going to be good enough for old people like me because Jordan did it 6 championships and 6 finals. When all of those boxes are checked, what else can you do to get gratification? Have the whole world waiting for you to make your decision. Now, here's a bonus for you. I'm not back tomorrow. It gets even better. My pal Adam Rank is here. Rankamania, running wild. I'm actually talking a bit more slowly today so Adam can see him like he is as jacked up as I normally am. And I caught some of yesterday's show and just trying to modulate. When we get to tomorrow, unless Adam is the luckiest broadcaster of all time, I don't think there's going to be an answer. And I also know Adam's MO. There's going to be a soccer game on, and he's going to give you the play-by-play he can't, but real-time analysis and a pass-by-pass update as to what's going on in midfield. So if you're tired of the story, I understand, but it's not going anywhere. And conventional wisdom had said, and we'll get confirmation from Kurt Ehlin of NBCSports.com in the final hour when we take it live to Vegas, that the start of Summer League tonight should have been the milestone, benchmark, the final tipping point to get LeBron to make his decision. But at this stage, especially given all the changes to the collective bargaining agreement, there's no urgency until a team says, we need your decision now, and none of them have any leverage to do that, nor do they want to alienate the king, who, according to reports from the most well-sourced guy in the LeBron ecosystem, Brian Windhorst, great friend of the program, LeBron's not engaging at all. So this is Bob Myers with the appeal directly. It was like a hostage video with a smile. Hey, come to Philadelphia. Now, his argument is sound and makes a lot of basketball sense, with the big caveat, is Joel Embiid finally going to be healthy? But let's just play, for the sake of argument, fantasy hoops, a Hall of Fame kind of talent in Embiid, former MVP winner, plus Jaylen Brown, a finals MVP, plus Maxey, an all-NBA player, plus, I don't want to crown anybody, plus I'll knock my mic off its moorings, an emerging star in Edgecombe. You put LeBron on that team, I think they're not far away from the Knicks. I think they're the second best team in the East. And we'll skip what he would mean for Cleveland, who we don't remember because they got obliterated by the Knicks, did make it to the conference finals. What he could mean for the relevance of the Warriors, according to reports, Denver's not going to happen. I always thought Minnesota was a pipe dream. So if we knock it down to and Miami, which is always there, and it was an afterthought by design because it just seems uninspired and lacking imagination. And if you are the content creator, if you're the producer, don't you need a better story to tell than I'm going back to Miami just to get those chocolate chip cookies that Pat Riley ripped off the plane? I guess Bronny needs a gig, so there's more room on the Heat roster. We will pause the LeBron discussion for now, and especially because I want to be as clone-friendly as possible, and the goal is always to entertain, then inform. There's nothing new to discuss. I just wanted to take a step back and give you a different lens through which to view this. We'll circle back in the final hour when we're joined by Kurt Helin, lead NBA writer for NBCSports.com. My name is Brian Weber. I can see as I look through the glass, the staff is recoiling in horror. How bad is the chat? Now, thankfully, they protect myself from myself. I get the sanitized, edited version. We will give you some of those highlights. Always available on the X platform as well. I took 2 calls yesterday. Why not? I'm in a giving mood. It's Christmas in July. 1-800-636-8686. Coming up in 25 minutes because the countdown to first touch, Foxborough's underway. France and Morocco in that all-colonialism matchup will be the first of 4 quarterfinals. We'll use that as the platform to take one more look back at the missed opportunity for the U.S. men's national team. Straight ahead, because nobody talks more mixed martial arts on a national platform like this, and nobody discusses it more intelligently than Jim Rome. You can tell in those conversations based on his evolution from an old school boxing fan to his passion for what's going on in the UFC today. I feel empowered to talk a little bit of Conor McGregor. He's going to put on the gloves and fight in the octagon for the first time in 6 years. Does the promotion, does the UFC need Conor now much more than he needs them? That is coming up, just getting warmed up on a very busy Thursday. Don't beef at me. Just be happy that we have some time together. I am Brian Weber in for Jim. This is the Jim Rome Show. A reminder, improve your vehicle's performance and gas mileage with Lucas Fuel Treatment at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply add it to your tank at your next fill-up to help eliminate carbon and varnish deposits. Right now, get 2 bottles of Lucas Fuel Treatment for just $9, plus receive 2 times O Rewards points with purchase. 2 times points helps you reach your next $5 reward twice as fast. That's a great proposition. So save today on Lucas Fuel Treatment at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store or shop online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
You're listening to The Jim Rome Show.
Brian Weber back with you. Always a blast whenever I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to fill in for Jim. We can all exhale. Jim on his way back soon. The Hall of Famer returns from his vacation on Monday. Wide open in this first hour of the program, 1-800-636-8686. Coming up in hour number 2, we talk college football with Pete Futak of collegefootballnews.com. Your interaction on the way. In 15 minutes, we'll focus on the pitch. I will give you a better sense of my years of training. Here's a preview. When I was a teenager, I moved to Luxembourg to hone my skills as a soccer play-by-play announcer, and then we'll broaden the focus. I can't even commit to the gimmick. And give you one more snapshot, one more takeaway from what felt like a grand mischance for Team USA. Now, I thought, as much as I enjoy playing a newscaster, that was my goal a million years ago. I thought sports, come on, that's toy department of life. I mentioned where I went to college. I thought the only news I would handle today was that parasite, I'm not saying the other word, that parasite in Michigan. But, Alvin, we have breaking news. Shams Charania, friend of the program. Just when you thought it was over, we got pulled back in. The Kawhi Leonard deal is on hold, and thank you to the production team, so I don't have to read all of that, and I'm not going to because this is a radio program. But let me give you the gist. It has been paused. It is now going to be held up until there's clarity on if the NBA is going to penalize Kawhi should their never-ending investigation about the allegations of salary cap circumvention, I should have gone to law school here, and the no-show job, should there be a finding that Kawhi was in the wrong along with the Clippers, well, what does that mean for his contract? Could there be penalties? So, because this investigation is still ongoing, this deal now cannot be finalized. I think that's the general essence. Couple things. If you weren't paying attention, and I can't blame you, so many folks rightly take a lot of time off this time of the year, the Kawhi deal, interestingly, was a better return of assets for the Clippers because they got Brandon Ingram, another player, 2 1s and 2 2s for an older player with an injury history than Brad Stevens could get for Jaylen Brown. They got a 114-year-old Paul George, a pair of 1s and a pair of 2s. So the Clippers did well in that deal. Let me give you one other layer, and let me give attribution because there's too much stealing in our business. And who has told this story better than Pulitzer Prize winner Pablo Torre? He's been all over it. He's doing real investigative journalism. When this trade was officially or quasi-officially consummated, when it was announced in the flurry of activity last week, Pablo pointed out that the owner of the Raptors is the lead, the head, the number one honcho of the board of governors that runs the NBA along with Adam Silver. So he is politically connected. And I'll remind you, if anybody should have a beef, trying my best to beef on a Thursday, I'm Brian Weber in for Jim. It's the Jim Rome Show presented by FanDuel. If anybody should feel like they got screwed by the Clippers getting Kawhi to come to Southern California, come back home through the allegations of the no-show job and getting paid for no work, it's the Raptors. Because Pablo reported that, according to his sources, good old Uncle Dennis, part of the Leonard family, had approached the Raptors asking for a similar arrangement, and they said no. So I realize that was convoluted. It's complicated, but your grand takeaway is the Kawhi Leonard deal is not done, ... Conor McGregor thoughts coming up, but since that was so laborious on a Big Word Thursday, that was tedious, let us get to a little more levity. Told the chat has been even more salty than normal. That's good. I would move this thing around. You got to really get the bottom of the barrel going. That does not play well on the radio. Good thing I'm very loud. All right, I'm just going to rattle through these, and if I don't give you your handle, that's okay. This is enough acknowledgement. LeBron is handling this offseason perfectly. Signed Aaron Rodgers. Hey, did you hack my laptop? I'll be talking about Aaron Rodgers in the next hour of the program. Tower of paper on the desk. Fair. Although I don't stack them. I'm not working at the IRS. I spread them out. Also, you might catch me glancing from time to time. And once the soccer game starts in 30 minutes, I'll have my good eye, like Sammy Davis or Sandy Duncan on the pitch to let you know what's going on. Stuck nut, piling on. There's plenty of room for more paper on that desk. Webb, you're slipping. Thanks so much. Now I have the cleaning police coming my way. Bruh, that HP... What is wrong with my HP? Now, I'm going to let you behind the curtain. I only do this once every month, and I got another guy taking a run at me. So the HP is running Windows 3.11. It doesn't matter because it's not on. It is a prop, okay? Now, we're giving FanDuel more love. I have it in front of me for two reasons. To hide as much paper as I can. Secondarily, before I took the spike, got in much better shape, it was also strategically placed, as you can figure out the alignment there. All right, one more run through the engagement. Does Parody Larry hit Chalk with the, do you know who the hell I am when he calls? He's probably on hold right now. Maybe I'll extend the spirit of generosity to a phone call from the greatness of Lawrence at the end of the program. And then finally, Lanier Messenger, Bob Meyer doing sales, hold my beer, a young Van Smack trying to sell dictation equipment. Let us talk what the current Van Smack handles better than anybody in the industry. And before, as is the normal way I handle my business, before I get to the topic, I have to be self-important and read my resume. A million years ago, I was lucky enough to be the voice of Strikeforce Mixed Martial Arts before they went national and Gus Johnson got the gig. That's fine. The only reason I mention it is I know, like soccer, just enough MMA to be dangerous. In fact, my good friend and the man who ran Strikeforce, Scott Coker, getting back in the mixed martial arts game, which is good beyond me lobbing phone calls to get work. It's good for the industry because competition brings out the best in any company. And I'm going to tread very lightly here, and I understand fully this is a big UFC house, and I'd be a fool to disparage UFC in any way. I'm the guy who fancies myself a poor man's Warren Buffett, tried to convince my old man to get in on TKO because obviously I know so much wrestling. That means I'm a financial expert as well. But I said the marriage of the WWE and the UFC is a license to print money, and I should have bought that stock, but that's why I'm here and not on an island. The issue with the UFC right now, in my opinion, is because they don't have the incentive of pay-per-view anymore, because they got that mega contract from Paramount, and Dana White, who always speaks his mind, says that he's heard through back channels that NFL owners cannot believe the level of money that Paramount's paying the UFC, meaning they're going to come looking for their cut when they open up those TV rights negotiations. UFC does not have that same drive, in my opinion, they had in the pay-per-view era to get you to invest whatever it became, $79.95, because this is all guaranteed money now. And just as the sport has evolved in many ways, I think we're seeing much more versatility and certainly a broader international component. I do think, and Jim makes this point better than anybody, because nobody goes undefeated in this sport. Everybody loses at some time. The star power has been diminished to a degree. Feels like a lot of these dudes are interchangeable. So enter Conor. Now, he's not young. He'll turn 38 next week. He is ripped, but by his own admission, a lot of that came during his rehab as he stepped away from the sport after he got his leg broken and he got doctor-authorized PEDs. I'm not saying he's juicing. I'm just giving you his own backstory that the New York Times reported thoroughly. And, in fairness, that's while he was in the process of not being tested. He was away from the sport. But he is certainly thicker than he used to be. The fight coming up on Saturday against Max Holloway, 34 years old. Last time we saw him in the spring, he got dominated by Charles Oliveira, who picked up that BMF title. If you care about their history, you probably don't. They met in 2013. Conor won when it went to the cards. So Conor is, as Dana said, maybe a $100 millionaire. No need for a GoFundMe. He's done very well. Unless, and this would be stunning news, somebody in the fight game has not been careful with their money. You know, I keeps a private jet. So hopefully he's not going to Floyd for financial advice, but he's also dabbled in acting, that terrible reboot of Roadhouse, and I blame Bob Menery because he's loathsome. He's got the bare knuckle fighting, which somehow is even more barbaric than slap fighting. I don't know why Conor's coming back unless he feels like he has something to prove, or because he's been such a good businessman, and clearly he's not coming back just to do the UFC a favor. This was money he couldn't refuse. But if I'm just going to throw out the top 5, and I'll do it quickly because I'm butchering the clock here, some of the names in the pound-for-pound rankings to amplify the point I'm making about a lack of star power, lack there is, because Islam Makhachev is a lock every time he gets in the ring. How about Ilya Topuria? You know he's a bad man, but what's your favorite Ilya quote? Does he sell a fight? Tom Aspinall is a total package, but we haven't seen him since he got his eye gouged by Cyril Gane. So the UFC has a lot of talent, but they all kind of feel like they're the same. And however you view Conor, he is one of one, and he puts butts in seats, metaphorically, and he can talk you into the building. And were this a pay-per-view bout, I would love to have seen what that number was, but that's irrelevant. Just compare the general buzz of casual fans for that debacle. And we all got scammed, and I know you probably have Netflix anyway, but if you signed up for Netflix to watch Carano and Rousey hug longer than that armbar took, we all got bamboozled, hoodwinked, and led astray. But that thing did a massive rating, and it generated a lot of social media currency. UFC does not have that same kind of palpable energy because the organization's gotten so big, and they don't need any single fighter. And Dana White's a brilliant businessman. I think a lot of this is by design. But ready or not, whether you like him, and most of you are not supposed to like him because he knows how to play a heel, Conor is back on Saturday, and I know Jim will be talking about it when he returns from vacation on Monday. I'm Brian Weber, in for the Hall of Famer. Sorry we had to get into the weeds on that Shams report, but it was newsworthy. 1-800-636-8686. Conversation never stops on the X platform. That is BW Weber. Weber with 2 B's. Straight ahead, concisely and entertainingly, we talk soccer. I love when you talk soccer. Getting ready for France and Morocco in New England, but we'll keep it domestic. What's going to be the lasting memory of the U.S. men's national team from this World Cup that's reached the quarterfinal stage? Always a good time to be had, at least from my perspective, whenever I am lucky enough to walk through the door in this studio. I'm Brian Weber, in for Jim. This is The Jim Rome Show.
You're listening to The Jim Rome Show.
Keep moving our way forward on a heavily stacked Thursday. 1-800-636-8686, the number to call. Let me be fully candid. While we still have a lot of real estate in front of us, effectively, this is last call for phone calls because I know the production team very well. Soccer mania running wild, at least in these parts of the jungle. Once the first touch at Foxborough gets underway, top of the hour, the imperialistic matchup between France and Morocco, the Casablanca game. We'll always have Paris. Once the game gets underway, these guys are going to zone me out even more than they normally do. So that phone's going to ring and ring and ring. If you want to get on hold, do it now. You get the sales training here? Limited supply. Call to action. Get a little more urgency in there. I'm going to talk soccer here, and now I'm just doing the mental calculus. So we had to address NBA salary cap circumvention, and a quick footnote on that. This implies to me now this investigation has to wrap up in the next few months, right? NBA training camps start in October. So at least there'll be a degree of finality sometime. And the cynic in me, because I was doing radio on July 3rd, thought, here's your classic news dump. NBA is going to drop the finding of this investigation, but they don't want anything negative going on right now because they have all the attention focused on LeBron. You have the excitement if you care about Summer League, but say Darren Peterson is proving he can stay on the floor if you want any of the takeaways from Salt Lake City. And AJ DeBonsa is going to be a superstar for years to come. So the NBA will bury this as best they can, but with the Kawhi deal now on hold, at least it sets up some parameters that there's got to be conclusions coming up before the start of training camps. We'll get back to this in the final hour, 5:40 Eastern time, when we are joined by Kurt Heelan of NBCSports.com. And one more thought about what's probably going to happen. I think Steve Ballmer gets a massive fine, perhaps a suspension. I think the Clippers get the Joe Smith sanction, multiple draft picks. And now this is why it's interesting. Can the league do anything to Kawhi? Is there a smoking gun that says he had knowledge that something amiss was going on? Dun, dun, dun. We'll find out in a couple months. All right, so I've done salary cap. I've done mixed martial arts. Now I'm talking soccer. Am I auditioning to get fired during the show? That's why I have the phone now turned off, because I don't want them ringing up before hour number 2 comes into focus. They're going to rip this microphone out of my cold, dead hand. Hey, guess what's coming up to start hour number 2? Getting closer to the All-Star game in baseball, but I will throw you your red meat. We have NFL conversation with Aaron Rodgers putting his legacy on the line. And then in the final hour, we'll go through the candidates that include the Cowboys. I can't believe the words that are coming out of my mouth, amongst the most improved teams in all of football. So, one more pass at soccer. And Alvin has found some audio gold that maybe he'll sprinkle in now, maybe later. Between all of the hearing I have lost, the ongoing raging case of tinnitus, folks, that's the only raging case I have, and the fact that I can't get my earpiece to work, Alvin's probably playing music right now, and I have no idea. I'm probably talking over Tony Bennett because I left my heart in San Francisco. But since I know just a little bit of soccer, just a couple things have occurred in my career.
Bennett.
When I took some time to consider what the United States did on the field and combine that with all of the enthusiasm, the passion, the spirit displayed, not only by American hospitality, but soccer fans, and greeting our friends from across the pond with open arms. This event has already been a monumental success. The ratings have been insanely big, meaning what happened to the United States against Belgium is all the more disappointing. Now, come to find out, everybody who was burying Christian Pulisic, and it's hard to defend him, although I tried my best to be down the middle yesterday, are going to have to also factor in to their thermonuclear hot takes that, according to reports, he was legitimately hurt. And I don't think anybody reasonably suggested he was jaking it or exaggerating the extent of the injury. According to this report that came out today, microfracture occurred in the leg, meaning he's going to be out for several weeks for his real gig that pays him real money at AC Milan. So injuries clearly are beyond anyone's control. And I do think now it makes the comments made by, and I respect Carly Lloyd. In fact, I think she's been the best analyst on all of Fox's coverage, that she was surprised that Pulisic came off the field and Landon Donovan trying to go poor man's Lawless with the, and I'm paraphrasing here, they would have to drag me off the field. I would have played with a broken leg. And what is going on with Landon and Pulisic? And the reports are out there, but since I'm straddling between the casual and what's going on the other side of the glass as they're already doing the Norwegian rowing heading into the weekend, clearly there's a disconnect, dare I say a rift, between Landon Donovan and the Pulisic family. And I guess that goes back, according to reports, too, when Pulisic was a youngster, Donovan offered to be a mentor of sorts, and Christian's old man said, yeah, we're cool. You just go get that hair appliance put on and we'll be fine. So then Donovan has turned up the heat with a shot not directly at Christian, but read between the lines at the old man and the rest of the entourage and handlers, saying that there's a vibe problem around the national team, that they feel Christian is detached because he has all of this around him and he's got people and he's got layers of detachment that doesn't make him feel like one of the guys. Well, he's not one of the guys in terms of skill set, but he's not Tom Brady. And I'll go for every dumb sports comp here. He's not Shohei Ohtani. He has not demonstrated in this setting, namely international play, he deserves to be treated with that kind of veneer and get his butt kissed all the time. But it is interesting that Donovan now is just staking out the high ground, or at least trying to, and metaphorically kicking this dude when he's down, because the play speaks for itself. This is now Balogun's team moving forward. Where would we, and yes, I go USA, USA, when I'm talking about an American team in international play. I'm Brian Weber, in for Jim Rome, getting closer to the second hour of the program, talking baseball, heading into the All-Star break, and getting you set for the opening of NFL training camps. Pulisic not having the ability to get on the field is beyond his control. But when he was out there, to come up with merely one assist and no goals is a massive underachievement. I'm not saying he choked. I'm just saying this is who he is. If you looked at his production or lack thereof at AC Milan's early stage of play, over all the way up to the summer, he hasn't had a single goal in Italy. So maybe it's time to pump the brakes on this whole Mr. Face of American soccer, Captain America, a transcendent talent like we've never seen. Now, objectively, just look at his career path. He has a better international resume than Donovan. He's won a Champions League title. He's getting paid in Italy, but doesn't mean that he's going to show up in the biggest of high-leverage situations representing his nation. Overall, gradual progress was made, but it's not nearly enough because everything was set up brilliantly for the United States with the expanded field, with the upgrade on the coaching staff, although the people who really know the sport now tell me that Pochettino got outcoached by his Belgian counterpart. If you want my thoughts, you got to download my podcast, The Set Piece with B-Web, available only on Westwood One and the Westwood One Sports app. We'll find out if Pochettino's around in 4 years, but for all of the enthusiasm and that positive start, to have it end the way it did just feels like we were all left unsatisfied. Now, the good news is I think millions of casual fans said, this is fun to watch. And soccer should be more mainstream. And soccer doesn't need you or me. Think about the billions of dollars, not stolen by FIFA, allegedly. I'll be very precise there. The billions of dollars in revenue produced by all of the marquee leagues around the world, the massive TV ratings. But because we get a little bit one-dimensional in the States, if we're not good in the sport, and we're not that good, that is your summation yet, in men's soccer. Women's soccer, I know it's been a minute since we've won the World Cup, but those 4 championships still count. There's a disconnect that needs to be resolved, or expectations need to be lowered. And maybe that quarterfinal in 2002 that Donovan played a major role in, led by friend of the program, Bruce Arena, is as good as it gets, and that's okay. United States doesn't have to be the best in everything. It's the old line from Wall Street, the one that nobody quotes. Not great is good. How many boats can you water ski behind? Why do we have to be the dominant player in every sport? And thus ends your soccer portion of the program. Coming up, just a little baseball, and we get you set for NFL training camps as we roll on the Jim Rome Show. It is another hour of the program, and it's great to have you with us coast to coast as we ease into hour number 2. Coming up in 40 minutes, unless I take a phone call in 20 minutes with your interaction. We'll incorporate the first outside voicemail. A lot of me navigating a lot of different topics, so I'm looking for a lifeline. I'll get it from my pal Pete Fiutak coming up 40 past the hour with the return of college football media days, plural. We had 2 in Frisco, Texas this week, celebrating the greatness of the Big 12. Next week, it's on to the ACC. That gives me license to go all in on a sport I used to love as much as the NFL, and I'm not talking about what happens on the field for college football. The politics, the constant craving for even more money, and let's blow up this conference, and we know where it's all going. It's just going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. Hey, my beloved Pac-12 that got murdered. I know there's still a conference out there. In fact, they're doing so well, they didn't want to spend the $12 to have a media day for the football season coming up. I think that was the kick in the stick that I never recovered from. But I do love the sport when we actually get to the games, because you can't tell me there's anything better than a Saturday in the fall with wall-to-wall college football. P. Fiutak of collegefootballnews.com will give us analysis. And that includes the beautiful game. I am aware that the quarterfinals are underway. It is France taking on Morocco. I am now just going to put up one more piece of cardboard right here so I cannot look at the monitor. I'm not giving you updates for 2 reasons. I don't care that much, and I'm not just going Bobby the Brain Heenan trolling you. Secondly, for some reason, I'm just very nostalgic today. It's always my last day in the jungle for an extended period where I'm just going through my memory banks. But early on in radio, when I had a much higher voice, and believe it or not, was much more annoying and, if possible, spoke even more quickly. I was working for KMBR 1050, which airs this show in the San Francisco Bay Area. If there's an opening, let me know. I will walk up the 5, and I'll see you in a few days. So I was on opposite a big San Francisco Giants game, and I'm doing a talk show, but I'm also, because I'm trained in versatility, giving updates as to what's going on with the Giants. And my boss walked in and said, you do realize that anybody who cares about the game is listening to the game? And basically you're saying, hey, stop listening to my terrible talk show, go over to the game. So I am not going to keep you updated on what's going on in the World Cup. If you care, you have other ways of finding out all of the minutia, and I can just react to the lurching and the body language and the on the other side of the glass. I'm amazed I'm getting through this so far because it is all soccer all the time amongst the XR4 Ti. In 15 minutes, we got to get to the NFL. I might be loud, but I'm not stupid. Aaron Rodgers, you've heard of him, right? He's coming back for another year. How much damage has he done to his legacy by hanging on this long? We will get there. I do my best not to avoid baseball, but to handle it in a way that at least I can frame things back to that central premise. Different boss gave me years ago, what's the topic? Because if we're talking baseball, I'm not going to read the standings to you. I'm not going to do the, hey, pick up the phone, 1-800-636-8686. What would be your fantasy all-star rotation for the all-star game? None of that's interesting to me, and it's also not 1998. Plus, I don't get worked up anymore about all-star snubs. That used to keep me up at night because clearly I have a great social life. I will give you one piece of agate, as we used to say in the eras of newspapers running wild. I did look up the score for the Yankees last check. They're putting the finishing touches on a 12-4 win over the Rays in the 9th inning. That is significant because last night, when the Yanks lost again, they were shut out by Tampa, and they fell 5 back of the division leaders, tied a franchise record. I like big, meaty sample sizes. Yanks have been around for a minute. By failing to score more than 5 runs in 20 straight games, snapped today. But if you, and here's your topic, if you think it's time to fire Aaron Boone, you have not been paying attention, because George Steinbrenner's kid is not his old man, and apparently Boone, and clearly much more to the point in terms of a long resume, Brian Cashman have lifetime appointments. We'll have another pope come in, hopefully another American pope, before Cashman is told to hit the bricks, pal. But it does point out, that's baseball, Susan, just when you're ready to bury a team, and the Yankees have major concerns, they don't win when Aaron Judge doesn't play. And there's no timetable for Judge to come back from whatever's going on with his ribcage injury. It does also point out that the Yankees, for all of their offensive struggles, because it's baseball and this is why you don't have firm, hard takeaways, next day you wake up and you bludgeon the Rays and you put up a crooked number. But overall, it's the usual suspects in terms of the National League. And I'm here in Southern California. I'm Brian Weber, in for Jim, 1-800-636-8686. Your interaction coming up in 15 minutes. I am not just sucking up to the host more than I normally do, but this is Dodger Jim's studio, and I do want to follow the lead of the Hall of Famer. After all, he's the best ever to do it, and I'm a fill-in guy. The Dodgers' supremacy, which has been remarkable considering all of the injuries. And if you're not following that closely, if you have World Cup fever, I understand. Maybe you parachute in for the All-Star game. Although if we're talking about polarizing, I'll be a little bit more upbeat announcers after I took that shot at Jim Gray for no reason. I guess I'm not going to be ever invited to the Museum of Excellence. If you talk about polarizing announcers, John Smoltz seems reviled by most baseball fans every time I'm on social media, understanding it's not real life. But when you watch the Midsummer Classic, you're going to see a lot of Dodgers, as you should, because not only do they have the highest payroll in all baseball, they have the best record. And here is what is troubling for contending teams. As the Dodgers try to three-peat, become the first National League team ever to do it, they're on pace to have a much better record than they've had the last 2 years when they won it all. And here's who they've not had to rely upon. No Edwin Diaz, who they went out and got to be the closer after all of the problems in the bullpen last year. He got hurt and still apparently enjoys hanging out with cockfighting, but we don't have resolution on that. What will have clarity first, the Kawhi Leonard investigation or whatever? We know the photos, and yes, thank you to the production team. If you're watching on the simulcast, you can read for yourself. Remember, the kids need cockfighting. It's a great way for America's youth to have a hobby and learn how to grow. Diaz has no denial because he's been photographed in the Intuit Dome in Puerto Rico of cockfighting. But let's just talk about his availability. He's got to get healthy first. Last time I checked, still no Tyler Glasnow. No real sense when he's coming back. No Blake Snell. Why did everyone freak out about Kyle Tucker getting all that money? And yes, we took you inside the Cock Dome, and that's being said precisely. Thank you, team. Why did everyone lose their mind? I guess because it was just the Dodgers piling on, that somehow getting Kyle Tucker was going to change everything. Well, they won 2 World Series without him, remembering that they had a rally just to get to a Game 7, and remembering it took an epic comeback to win their second straight title. And yeah, he's been an upgrade in the outfield, but the guy's hitting 249. Mookie Betts, a shadow of himself. And yes, I live here in L.A. I'm aware that he had the go-ahead hit last night. But if you just add up all of those key contributors who aren't even on the field, and Ohtani, now you got to be very careful with how you approach him as a pitcher, as much as he wants to be out there. And the Dodgers keep going back and forth with a 6-man rotation as I audition to do local radio here in the Southland. Not ready for that. I just have to continue to plug away, filling in for Jim. You know what's coming. Well, you know what's coming irrespective of the Dodgers' success, because even if the Dodgers were as miserable, say, as the Mets, who have the second highest payroll in all of baseball, or the Yankees, who spent the third highest total of money, if the Dodgers had imploded for some reason, it wouldn't change the mindsets and the action plan of MLB owners. They're going to try to jam that cap down the throats of players, because they've been trying for decades to get what they call cost certainty. But the Dodgers blowing past everybody else. If you care, they were the first team to 60 wins. I realize that not only is Jim in Wisconsin, we have great affiliates throughout the state. Yes, Brewer fan, I am aware you've won 58 games. I did a long bit on The Miz yesterday. But we saw last year in the NLCS how the Dodgers and Brewers match up head-to-head, which was a complete departure. Milwaukee kicking LA's ass during the regular season, but the regular season has little meaning when we're talking about actually moving on to October. So the Dodgers doing this with a litany of injuries and a guy like Roki Sasaki who got the ball last night who's been very human. In fact, most organizations, I think, would have sent him down, as last year he went through the rehab assignment, then came back and was brilliant in the pen, a major reason why they won it all again. Entering last night's start, he had a gigantic ERA of over 10 over his last 4 starts. So they're doing all of this without some of their most important players doing anything. And all that's going to mean is when we get to the lockout, step 1 in November, the owners are going to be even more resolute in saying the system doesn't work. We have a historical juggernaut that needs to be codified against. We got to change the rules because it's a rigged poker game, which makes no sense because I'll bring up the point again, and I grew up in New York a long time ago, still working on getting all that enunciation out. The Mets haven't bought jack since 1986, and their payroll wasn't that big then, comparatively speaking. When's the last time the Yankees won a World Series? Should I continue? So, yes, you can come up with any straw man argument you want that it's the economic imbalance that is forcing baseball to have this Dodger problem. I don't think it's a Dodger problem other than jealousy and envy from the other clubs. And, as I just mentioned, watching the Yankees go from a historic slump as a team and back-to-back games with 17 strikeouts, and then they put up a 12 spot today, it's flip a coin 162 times. Baseball is completely random. Yes, the Dodgers have more depth because of their massive resources, but it doesn't guarantee you anything. And when we get to these negotiations, let's just say somehow the owners prevail. Maybe it's a court order. This is really boring, so I'm going to do it even more rapidly than normal. When we get the salary cap, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's just play along. Theoretically, remember, it's going to be a floor as well. Well, who doesn't want a salary floor? That means the Marlins finally have to spend money. The Pirates have to write a check. Do you think organizations like that have the right people making player personnel and evaluation decisions? Hell no. We know that. So the sport is just fine. There is no reason other than the owners who don't want to spend their money. And if they don't have a willingness to spend, they shouldn't own the franchises. I keep going back to whatever term you want. No need for a GoFundMe, bake sale. I haven't mentioned a telethon in this hour. No need for a telethon for anybody in that kind of exclusive fraternity. But just like the NBA owners decided, let's put a straitjacket on us collectively with this punitive CBA that killed free agency with the dreaded second apron. And they point to 8 different champions over the last 8 years. Okay. You've also made the summer, in which you used to dominate the headlines, a hell of a lot less interesting. And player movement now is just too complicated with all these deals. And coming up in the final hour, in addition to the Kawhi conversation, thank goodness Kurt Heelan's available. Now there are reports that the Lakers could get Jonathan Kuminga through some sign and trade mechanism. Look, I used to be relatively smart. I appreciate intelligence, but this has gotten like reading an accounting handbook. Nobody cares about what's in the weeds. And I'm just pointing out that the Dodgers doing all of this on pace to win 104 games is even worse news for what we know is coming. So enjoy the games now while you have them, because it's going to be a long, dark winter. I'm upbeat as a fill-in guy, right? I'm Brian Weber in for Jim. 1-800-636-8686. As I commit career suicide on the air, salary cap talk, mixed martial arts, baseball and soccer. Hallelujah. The NFL is going to bail me out. Coming up, in addition to your interaction, and college football on the horizon. And I'll throw that out for the chat. Why do you have why do you people have a problem with the way I say college? Should I enunciate even more? I did college sports, including soccer, for about 1 billion years. I cannot pull my tongue out and throw it into a mason jar and get a little bit of Ohio in there. Unfortunately, I'm stuck in the New York tri-state area. But college football conversation will be had in 25 minutes when we're joined by my old friend, Pete Fiutak of collegefootballnews.com. Straight ahead, at last, football analysis. And we play the hits as a fill-in host who's now trying to bail himself out after poor topic selection. As Aaron Rodgers heads into his final year, is he pulling a russet? Is he going full Russell Wilson, seriously damaging his legacy in his final years on the field? All that and more coming up. Thanks for hanging with me on a loaded Thursday. I am Brian Weber in for Jim. This is the Jim Rome Show.
You're listening to the Jim Rome Show.
I'm Brian Weber, and I am delighted to be in for Jim, my second and final appearance during the summer. I am not hard to find. I'm probably too available in every aspect of my life. I'm a needy, lonely man looking for you to follow me, not physically. Just follow me on the X platform. BW Weber, Weber with 2 B's. In 20 minutes, we get to the college football. For all of the foibles and flaws of how the sport is run and organized, it is still the best thing going when we get to Saturdays and Thursday nights and Friday nights in the fall. And it's always great to check in with Pete Futek of collegefootballnews.com. Final hour, in addition to the NBA, I'll cover in 40 minutes to tip off the last hour of the show. We'll take it live to Vegas and have another conversation with somebody that I have had the pleasure of knowing for many years. It is Kurt Helin of NBCSports.com. Coming up, we've made it to the NFL portion of the program. I fully understand that on the stream, we should just put up an NFL shield and you all huddle around looking at it like the caveman with fire. Like, what's going on there? Maybe somebody's going to talk about something that we're addicted to. I don't mean to get clinical, but we just cannot get enough NFL. Wait, are we doing B-Web is burning? Look, I have stolen enough from Jim Rome. If you're watching on the simulcast, Lauren, you're going to get me fired. First, we had the monkey debacle yesterday.
Burning. Now
it's going to be when the Hall of Famer comes back on Monday. Hey, did Weber just say, here's what I want to burn on? Yeah, we're going to go into the forum in the next segment. Where's Roger Lodge? Now, I know he's here in Southern California. I think I got better hair than Raj now. Put that on the poll as we get insular, which we try not to do on the Jim Rome Show. Aaron Rodgers putting his career in context as it winds down coming up. Okay, I'm trying to give myself an out here. The way we handle things is I'm old school. I know, shocking, developing story. And I rely on Tom and his Ivy League education to curate all the interaction. But he wants you guys to have so many opportunities, John, and he handed it to me. It's still hot. Do we mimeograph as well here? So I am reading this blind. And if I stop, that just means I'm bailing out because I want to hang on to at least 59.5 to get access to what's left of my 401k. B-Web, UFC needs Conor, but doesn't want any future megastars. They just want normal guys. That is not a bad perspective. I like to, when I said it earlier, I'll give you a TV comp because I'm never going to work for ESPN. When ESPN saw Chris Berman become the face of the network, they decided internally we're never going to have another Chris Berman. So you got 20 guys smirking and doing catchphrases in the middle of the night. I think it's the same thing in terms of running a business. And I'm going to tread lightly here because I know Jim has great relationships with the folks who run TKO. As I said, look at the stock. I'm not giving you an investment advisement. I have to have that caveat there. But I do think from a way of controlling budgets, because they know you're going to watch, because they have the guaranteed money in their TV deal, it is advantageous for them to have interchangeable champions, not in any way denigrating the skill set of all those guys I read in the top 5 pound-for-pound rankings. But if you don't have a transcendent star, you don't have to pay them. Economics, straight cash, homie. Moving on. Now that we know the laptop isn't real, did I break your heart? Was that too much of an admission? Did I tell you Santa Claus isn't real? Can we question what's in your mug? How many lies are you perpetrating? Or that I appreciate you caring so much, and the astute people know the handle fell off a long time ago. It's probably the best metaphor for my career, right? And it's just, if you need to know, Gatorade, because I'm trying to dial down on the soda, because a couple of you think I am fairly svelte. Out. You know I keeps a private jet. In. You know I keep a fake HP. This thing could work. I have the dial-up modem going. I still have an AOL subscription. CompuServe wants in. Give me back my laptop, sign the furniture store. Did you know if you mix ramen with tuna and Taco Bell hot sauce, it tastes just like I don't get paid for another week? Beautiful. Somebody else has tinnitus. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that. And finally, Haunted Horse is always a volume shooter, and I want to acknowledge a good friend of the program. Brian, those Strike Force broadcasts were so epic. You were a great wigman. Larry Minetti. I know what you did there. And you probably don't even know that you confused two of the highlights of my career. In addition to the ball being chipped into the area and then headed on frame in Tucson, Arizona. Larry Minetti, of course, you know him as Rick from Magnum PI, was my broadcast partner when I did arm wrestling, the pole at the Plaza in Las Vegas. If you care about Strike Force, I work with the great Frank Shamrock. And now you know the rest of the story nobody wants to hear. NFL training camps, 12 days away. So I know you've been going through withdrawals, unless you've just gotten intoxicated by soccer fever, and it's been that bridge you need until players run around in shorts and pads, and that's the key development that gives all of us license to go all football all of the time. In addition to what we do year-round, it's not like there's ever an official fallow period in the NFL, but when the rookies for the Panthers and the Cardinals show up in a dozen days, getting set for the Hall of Fame game, that means, to quote my pal, the great Garrett Ritt, game on. And when you look at the Steelers, you have a sense of unparalleled institutional stability. You want to do it with me? How many head coaches have they had since Richard Nixon was in the White House? Not one, not two, not three. And now it's Man Mountain Mike McCarthy, who I think primarily got the job because his father owned a bar in Pittsburgh. Can you give me other reasons why he was a coveted commodity? And I guess you could say the Steelers knew all along that Aaron Rodgers was coming back, like LeBron, as we wait for him to make his decision. They gave him plenty of latitude. And Aaron has said all the right things about feeling so comfortable back in Mike's offense. Fair. Are they also bringing a hot tub time machine with them? Because last time I checked, Aaron and his former, now present head coach haven't done much. And we're talking about a decent sample size over the last 5 years cumulatively, but I'll leave Mike alone. He seems like a nice man. And again, I'm afraid of Wisconsin for some reason. I'm never going to go there again, but I know how much that state means to this program. So let's leave Brittany and Mike McCarthy alone. As for Aaron Rodgers, as I look back at his career, I'm not putting him in the ground. He's got one more year left, but didn't it feel like last year should have been his final year? I realize that if you look at metrics that tell you he was middle of the road, and especially for the first half of the season before he slowed down, he looked like a functioning upper-tier quarterback. Certainly an upgrade over what they've had in recent years. Tiny hands ain't walking through that door. He can't even open it because he got these tiny, tiny hands. And if we think about the historical implosions of all-time greats, because Aaron Rodgers, prior to his decline in Green Bay, then the wilderness with the Jets and whatever this is in Pittsburgh, was the most skilled quarterback I'd ever seen. I'd put him at the top, and I'd put John Elway slightly behind him. Just talking about physical abilities. Elway, obviously, with the mobility, too, especially as a young quarterback who ran around so much, but arm talents and throwing into tight windows. Rodgers still has flashes of that, but he's aging poorly and reminding us that this is what 42 looks like. And believe me, that's a long time ago from me. 42 in football used to be George Blanda, looking like he's 178 years old, and then Tom Brady changed everything with the hundreds of thousands of dollars he has spent on an annual basis on his body and his diet and his, to use Jim's word, myopic zeal. Aaron Rodgers doesn't have any of that. So he is aging out. Now, I'm not saying to connect it to Brady. Remember that cliff Brady was going to fall off of? Rodgers hasn't done it. I'll give Max Kellerman props because I always enjoyed his work, especially on boxing. Russell Wilson did, and maybe fell all the way out of the Hall of Fame. I think he gets in for body of work, but it's going to be an interesting case, and we know how dicey it gets in that room when the selectors get together for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Aaron's certainly still a first ballot selection, but while it's not Joe Namath with his gimpy knees limping around for the LA Rams. I'll make it all SoCal all the time. Not Johnny Unitas stumbling around for the Chargers, Jack Murphy Stadium. It's not that bad. It's not going to be that grisly of an ending. Let's hope. Look, it's a brutal, violent sport. This Chris Johnson ALS story is just heartbreaking. Especially he was on Jim Rome's podcast not too long ago. It's a head injury sport. And I don't want to go Dr. Doom on you, but I'm hoping that Aaron Rodgers walks off the field whenever the Steelers season ends. But the last time we saw him, Steelers get into the playoffs. Thank you, Baltimore, for having a rookie kicker on the road. And they didn't do anything in a game that C.J. Stroud tried to hand them the win over and over and over again. So is Rodgers going to be better, a year older? Yeah, the receiving core is upgraded a bit, and you can say there's the comfort and the fit with McCarthy's offensive system, as Michael Pittman Jr., friend of the program, is now a Steeler wideout. Still, that division is going to be better. I think the Ravens' hire of Jesse Minter gets them back to their defensive identity. Plus, Harbaugh had been there so long, they had tuned him out, and he had been dining out on that one Super Bowl victory, never even got back to the Super Bowl for way too long an amount of time. This is the window for Cincinnati. If they don't win now with Joe Burrow, they're going back to the days of Achilles Smith. Cleveland, I know Alvin is doing his best to run the board, watch soccer, and get ready for training camp. And I wish he were higher on the depth chart. But as much as the creep makes that team just so unlikable and loathsome in many ways, if I'm going to be fair, they've had a good offseason. Now, you could also argue, hey, Phil and dude, could they get any worse? But I'm not a Browns truther. I'm just looking at objective facts and telling you they're going to get better. So what's it all mean? Pittsburgh's got more competition. Baltimore's going to win that division. I think they're going to win it pretty easily. So maybe a wild card shot for Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully we don't see that massive drop-off just because I root for, I was going to say happy endings, but V is listening. I root for positive conclusions, and I just don't want to see him stumbling around, getting beat up because the last handful of years going back to what was obvious to the Packers, you don't draft Jordan Love just because you're planning for the future. You also are seeing in real time the decline of the face of the franchise, the Jets excursion, and this Pittsburgh period, which has been, mid. The legacy's intact, and we'll remember him for the brilliance in Green Bay, but this chapter has been less than stellar. I'm Brian Weber. I know all about that. Middling at best, just looking for an adequate start. Do I have to go 5 1/3 to qualify for that? Well, I've made it through half the program. Coming up in 25 minutes, back to the NBA. One more attempt at LeBron James conversation, and I'll link it to Aaron Rodgers. Here's a hint. These people never go away anymore. And I'm talking about legends of sport, not just on the field. They are everywhere, even when they hang up the jock. That's coming up. Straight ahead, we had Big 12 Media Days this week in Texas. Next week, it's on to the ACC. That lets me go all in on college football. Is the Big Ten going to win the national title for the 4th consecutive year? We will discover all of the important takeaways on campus when we're joined by Pete Futak of collegefootballnews.com. That is coming up. I'm Brian in for Jim on The Jim Rome Show.
You're listening to The Jim Rome Show.
As we get closer to the final hour of the program, I consider our first guest, about to join us, to be sports media royalty. Therefore, I did not do my job effectively. No man makes Pete Fiutak of collegefootballnews.com wait. Pete, it has been a few months. How are you? We're reunited.
I will let it go this time, Mr. Weber, but it's all right. We're good. I'm good. Hey, it's crazy how this, sports world is going, and college football is now sort of here with the talking days, but everyone cares about World Cup anyway. So it's an odd time of year for the sports calendar for us.
Now, hang on. Not everyone cares about the World Cup. Is there a match going on? Because I figure everyone's just listening and watching to you and I.
There is. France is going to win probably, but all right. See, the thing about World Cup, and it happened with the United States, unfortunately, and it's my lifelong mission with college football, is understand the schedules. Everyone's like, my team is great. We blew out Mercyhurst and Eastern Directional State, and this team, we should be in the net. No, you looked great because you beat bad teams. And then you play, Indiana or Michigan, and all of a sudden, uh-oh, we're not that good anymore. And so it's funny how you can see how this kind of happened with the United States team when all of a sudden, Belgium's actually good. Well, I wanted to scream yes, remember, and you also lost to Turkey. Alabama, you lost to Florida State. It's people have their own specific memories when it comes to their teams.
You are a take machine. I am more superfluous than normal on a Big Word Thursday. He's Pete Fiutak taking us onto the pitch. Let me get you back to your profession. Did you open PeteFiutakSoccer.com as well? You mentioned Big 12 Media Days.
Football, I've learned this.
Yes.
Just like it's offside, not offsides.
Thank you very much. And it's a set piece on a corner kick. Big 12 Media Days. Texas Tech, in your mind, the clear favorite in that conference, or how do you see the pecking order?
Yeah, nothing changed with the Sorsby thing. That was my running, my superfluous hot take was all right, if they had Brendan Sorsby, they're 11-1. If they don't have Brendan Sorsby, they're probably 11-1. But look, this year Utah is really good. BYU is really good. I think Kansas State is one of those teams that's going to find its mojo back again after last year with Colin Klein coming in and taking over. They're really good. It's not the Big Ten or the SEC, but it's a pretty solid conference from top to bottom. And it's not going to be easy. Whoever comes out of this conference isn't going to do much anything in the college football playoff. But, if you look at all these teams they're in, Iowa State's going to be better. TCU's going to be better. There's just a lot of good teams in this. And it's going to be a fun year, even if it is, even if we're going to be forced to call it the monster or whatever Big 12 from here on.
Well, we don't have to. We're not getting paid.
But we'll get a stern email from someone saying that it's not our name anymore. We're called this or something.
Well, we saw Yormark dress
that
guy
I
down.
can be bought off. I can be absolutely bought off. You want to send me,
No, I don't.
I'll call you Betty if you want, in Big 12, but that's fine.
As my late father said, if you're going to be a courtesan, don't be a cheap courtesan. Brian Weber and Pete Fiutak, we've been doing this for a long time. He is the editor of collegefootballnews.com. Well, you are entrenched in Big Ten country. And isn't it amazing when you were mentioning, the national powers, you're not going to beat Indiana, the renaissance of that program. Let the casuals know who is going to replace Fernando Mendoza and what's your outlook for Curt Cignetti's team overall.
It's funny you mentioned the second. It's seeing. I didn't see the free safety until too late. I left my mouth and I couldn't pull it back. I did mention Indiana instead of an Ohio State or someone more obvious. But yeah, that's the story. And I got yelled at. So your football program is awesome when your fans are insufferable instantly. And the second I put out something that, and I love Indiana. I have family who went there. I love the school. I love everything about it. So I'm not dogging the place. But it's the one big question in college football this year. And you mentioned this, can Josh Hoover, the transfer from TCU, replace Fernando Mendoza? That's it. That's everything. You'd think you'd bring your, 19th year senior to Big Ten Media Days since he's the only guy anyone wants to talk to. And Cignetti being Cignetti and Indiana being Indiana, which are all awesome, decide, we're going to bring all these, linemen and things that nobody really wants to talk to anyway. So, but Josh Hoover's the guy. He's it. He's the biggest thing in college football going forward, because if he's not as good as the guy who just had arguably the greatest season of any quarterback in college football history, well, then Indiana might be, 11-1 good, not undefeated good. So this is still a loaded team. Signetti's still amazing. They have to get more talent than they had last year in the transfer portal. They got some great players. So yeah, so it sounds weird to say, but it's the truth now that Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan, actually not even Michigan, but Oregon actually more than Michigan. Those are the three powerhouses in college football. You put Notre Dame in there, and those are your four best teams in college football.
But you did mention Michigan. I try to be an active listener, so let me follow up. And there's nice synergy to this show. Kyle Whittingham's been coming on the Jim Rome Show for decades. I realize it's a late transition and just year one in Ann Arbor. How do you think he's going to put his imprint on the Michigan program?
It'll be great. I mean, the problem, though, is they didn't get appreciably better talent-wise. So you maybe upgraded the coaching and you're a little more settled. And obviously, Whittingham's an all-timer, a sure thing Hall of Famer, and one of the best around for the last few decades. But you still don't have the guys that Ohio State has. Ohio State has an unfair number of talented players on that offensive side. Oregon gets Dante Moore back and just about everyone else. And again, like I mentioned, Indiana, they should be winning the national championship again with the talent they have back. So you got three powerhouses there, and you got to make the trip to Oklahoma this year. So Michigan might be appreciably better and still be 9-3 and not make the college football playoff.
Getting you set for the return of college football with Pete Fiutak. I'm Brian Weber in for Jim. This is the Jim Rome Show. Have to get to some SEC conversation. Your expectations for Lane Kiffin, year one at LSU with their big pickup at quarterback Sam Leavitt.
Oh, and I'm a pure believer that I can't go as far as saying this is Saban going to Alabama, but it's not far off. I mean, think about what this guy has done. And he gets dogged because he's Lane Kiffin. But he had 1 year at Tennessee where he was good, and that was like the one good Tennessee year. He leaves for a better job at the time, which was USC. Had a monster year, then they get hit with the Reggie Bush coma penalties, and they have a problem. He gets run off there by Pat Hayden. Ends up going to Florida Atlantic, where he turns Florida Atlantic into a Conference USA powerhouse where they were winning championships, and then goes off to Ole Miss, which you think, oh well, Ole Miss sounds like an SEC program. That's kind of Vanderbilt on steroids over the years. Not
academically, in fairness.
Yeah, that's Brian Weber with 2 B's saying that.
Thank
everyone,
you.
not me.
No, they can come after me. That's fine.
That's not a traditional powerhouse. They had the best run in Ole Miss football history under Kiffin, and now he finally gets a program like this at LSU where he's bound by nothing. They can get anybody they want through the portal. Money's not an issue, and he's going to get to do all the things he's been doing, but with a much higher talent level. I am there thinking that he is going to be a really, really huge deal, and Alabama is going to still be ruining the day that they did not go after him instead of Kalen DeBoer.
And most important, he is a content machine, which is good for fellas like you at collegefootballnews.com.
I love myself some Lane Kiffin. I'm on the Lane train, so I'm there.
And we don't think it's going to derail in Baton Rouge. Pete, you're the best. Again, thank you for your patience. I'm ignoring the World Cup because I want to hold my audience. Would you like to give us an update, though?
Shockingly, there is a soccer game at 0-0.
No, 0-0, pal. If you're going to pretend to be soccer guy, 0-0.
No, it's football game is 0-0. It's soccer. It can be 0-0. So I'm the American side of this at this point until it gets awesome, which it's going to become.
Scoreless on the pitch. Pete, thank you very much. I disappear for months, but I'm going to put you down for the day after Thanksgiving if you're available.
I'm still here and going. Let's go.
Thank you, Pete. I'll take you the Lane train to Flavortown if you were enjoying what was behind my pal on the simulcast. I am making a business decision not to update you on the World Cup because I don't want you drifting away from me. Now, I got enough of an obstacle to overcome. My own personality and failings as a broadcaster in person, and I'm not Jim Rome. So if you care about the World Cup, you can drift over there on your own time. Plus, I know who's coming in tomorrow. It's my pal Adam Rank. Rankamania. Running wild. I dare say I was subdued in my approach compared to my buddy. He was ready to go, highly caffeinated, and he loves the beautiful game much more than I do. So keep it where it is for Soccer Insights in 22 hours. Footnote 2, Pete's great analysis. This should be the final year of the 12-team playoff. And if I'm lucky enough to come back next year around this time, although I don't take anything for granted, I can give you a preview of my rant. I don't care about a 16-team playoff. I don't care about a 24-team playoff. Now, I'll talk about it. It's my job after all. And we know where we're going. Just follow the money. It's quite obvious. If the NCAA, which has nothing really to do with football anymore, as we see over and over and over again, is willing to damage the most ideally set up bracket and tournament in all of sports for expansion of the NCAA basketball tournament, which no one is asking for other than middling head coaches in the Big Ten and the SEC to keep their jobs after they go 6-12 in conference play, but their RPI is strong enough that they get into the field of 76. If that is happening, you know within the span of a year, we're going to get expansion in the college football playoff. So I hope it's 16, but why not go to 24? Why not suck every dollar out of the college pigskin as they continue to try to do? When we get there, you cannot make an argument to me that that's going to be a better setup for two reasons. You can't sell me that the 25th best team then has any argument to make. If you're number 25, that's a you problem. And half of my connection to college football as an old-timer was the organic conversation about who's in, who's out, and the meaning and integrity of the regular season. But I am going Clint Eastwood, get off my lawn, knowing it's all going to change. It's going to change as soon as the end of the season. Coming up, one more pass at LeBron. Is it going to have any impact, his decision, on the rest of the NBA on the Jim Rome Show? It is the final hour of the program, so good for you to spend a few minutes with us on this Thursday installment of the Jim Rome Show. Officially, the last call for phone calls. Last chance coming up in 20 minutes, 1-800-636-8686. We will sift through everything going on in the live chat to bring you what's appropriate to pass along with interaction, also in 20 minutes, and then 40 minutes from now, take it live to Vegas, scheduled to chat. I will throw in that disclaimer because our friend Kurt Heelan, managing editor and lead NBA writer for NBCSports.com, is a busy journalist with a lot of responsibilities as Summer League is heating up. In fact, if you log on to NBCSports.com right now, I'm sure he is weighing in on the report from Shams Charania about the Kawhi Leonard deal being placed on pause, which I'll get into the details in a second with the preview. It's really boring and really tedious, but the headline is the deal is on hold, connected to allegations of circumvention of the salary cap. This is just, if possible, more boring than I've ever been. That's saying something. So, and guess what I'm going to follow that dissertation with? Hey, more LeBron James conversation, but because it's my last opportunity to be with you for months, I gave considerable thought as to how can I frame LeBron one final time. And I could flame, I could go yard. Give me an A, give me an F. We'll get there together. But the conversation never stops on social media. That's BW Weber, Weber with 2 Bs. And if you miss any of the show, the podcast comes out shortly after we say goodbye at the top of the hour with soccer analysis, the return of Conor McGregor to the UFC coming up on Saturday, baseball heading into the All-Star break. I got more football to get to 18 minutes from now, as for some reason I'm going into a filibuster at the top of the hour, which is just bad clock management. Do the Cowboys have a legitimate chance to be one of the most improved teams in all of football? And I'm like, Fonzie, another contemporary reference. Although, where have the Potsy Weber connections been made in the live chat? I've gotten Buddy Hackett. I saw a W.C. Fields allusion. Look, I'm old, and I am insular, and I'm arcane with this stuff, but even I said, hey, 1948 called. Can we come up with something a little bit more current? And nobody in there has dropped a Potsy Weber reference. But remember when Fonz, because it is 1977 all over again, would have to apologize and say, I was wrong? I'll find out in 20 minutes if I can get the sentence out.
Sit on it
Jerry
now.
Jones had a good offseason. That is coming up. I have a news obligation just to quickly run through this Shams report. And if you really want to know all the minutia, this is your take-home assignment. But the headline sums it up. The deal that was agreed upon between the Raptors and the Clippers with a flurry of moves last week is now on hold. Why? Because the investigation that the NBA started months and months ago into the allegations of circumventing the cap has not been finished. And as the Clippers put out in their statement, I'll just read it verbatim since I'm getting very lawyerly here. The deal can only be finalized if the Raptors ownership group assumes the risk of penalties related to Kawhi's contract that could theoretically result from the ongoing investigation. What's that mean? If the league decides to hammer Kawhi as an individual, which in my opinion, following everything that Pablo Torre's been laying out, is going to be hard because they're going to have to find some kind of smoking gun. It just can't be anonymous sources. They're going to have to find either An email from Kawhi, who I think is smart enough to have plausible deniability. Also, Uncle Dennis has been the handler. He's been the go-between for all of these allegations. Unless they find a paper trail or some audio tape of Kawhi going, can you believe all this money I'm getting for doing nothing? I think it's going to be very hard for Kawhi to get dinged individually. Still, because they're dragging this thing out and they're going to bury the findings sometime in early August, probably the same day as the Pro Football Hall of Fame game, which is always now on a Thursday because they want us to watch football on Thursdays with more regularity. When we get to the conclusion, I think Kawhi individually, nothing happens to him. The deal goes through. Bomber's going to have to write a check. No need for any degree of empathy for that. Probably, I think, going to be severed from the team for a while. Going to have to be suspended. And the Joe Smith precedent, as I really should have gone to law school, says probably multiple draft picks that will be taken away from the Clippers. And now you know the rest of a horrendous story. As for LeBron, here's how I want to set this one up. And we're still waiting for him to make his decision. And I think were I a betting man, as it is the Jim Rome Show, presented by FanDuel with the bonus equity from yours truly, Jim will be back on Monday, maybe Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. He'll be talking about it next week. There's no urgency. There's no pressure from the teams that LeBron is courting. It's not the other way around. It's, hey, come here. What can you do for me? And I think the money is a factor. He's obviously taking less because he made $50 million last year. But it comes down to, if you believe his camp, the pursuit of happiness, and that is a noble goal, especially coming off Independence Day weekend. Fit situation, I steal from the Hall of Famer. If I'm going to steal from the best, has a couple different layers to it. There's the personal aspect, and then there's the basketball conversation. But this is all going on in slow motion because LeBron not only loves the attention, I think he enjoys dictating the news cycle. And it also reminds us that whenever the career is over, he's not going anywhere because these dudes never disappear anymore. We were talking about the telethon the other day because I guess I put even more Brill cream in the toupee, and a Jerry Lewis reference came up. And I'm going to connect this to LeBron painstakingly. Celebrities, especially sports, former athletes, and guys who were luminaries, after their careers, they disappeared. Now, we didn't have social media, but unless you became a jock on TV, unless you had one of those jobs, and they were rare, because believe it or not, kids, we only had 3 channels before Fox came around. Unless these guys had a forward-facing job, you never saw them. Joe DiMaggio, when I was a kid, I knew him because of the Mr. Coffee commercials, and he'd show up at Old Timers Day. That's Joe freaking DiMaggio. A nation turns its lonely eyes to you. Now, because of the avalanche of cash that has rolled into sports and social media and these megastars being so well managed and so ambitious, these folks are everywhere. Tom Brady, even if he hadn't taken reportedly $300 million to say nothing and smile at us with a squeaky voice on Fox, still has a myriad of businesses. So back to the telethon, I'm a big Tony Orlando and Dawn fan. I know that shocks you. We'll tie that yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. You didn't see Tony Orlando every 15 minutes on TV. I couldn't go to some device and go, oh, Tony's having chili for lunch. He would show up once a year on the telethon, and it was a big deal. Now, we think we know all these guys, and the crew really is enjoying my effort to put a nice, strong landing coming off the balance beam here. I'm Brian Weber, in for Jim Rome. The Bulgarian judge right now says degree of difficulty is 9-9. LeBron is reminding us, as he dictates the process, that this is all content for him. You know, because it's the continuing rivalry on and off the court between the King and Michael, that he's going to have his own version of The Last Dance. And he's just letting you know, settle in because I'm going to be a part of your lives for the rest of my life. And you're going to find out about Bronny and everything else. So that's part of the reason why, if you think about the NBA having an oversized presence in sports media, and I say it repeatedly, and nobody particularly cares, but I just want to give you my background. I love basketball more than football. It's a better sport. Aesthetically, it's quicker. People don't wind up with CTE, if I just want to be straight up with you. And head injuries are a real concern, but we've decided we don't care because we want to be entertained. Bread and circuses. And it was the one sport I could play a little bit because you can play in your backyard and think you're going to be Bernard King. Football is a whole different deal. But the NBA connection to its fan base, because these stars are everywhere, is, in my mind, so much more intense than NFL guys because you feel like you're part of that vibe when Steph Curry is cooking. Or pick the 12th man on the Grizzlies because you get to go on vacation with him. We have such a visceral now link to these folks. And if we're even talking about reserves, it's only magnified when we then shift to somebody with the oversized presence of LeBron James. So I think this is all by design, just to flex one more time, not only to the teams, not only to carnival barkers like yours truly, but to all of us. I'm LeBron freaking James, and I will make my decision when I want to, and you're going to hang on my every word, and he's not going to be proven wrong because we only get more consumed by sports with every passing year. It's the only thing in my lifetime that has not had a recession. And again, I don't know why I keep talking so much dollars and cents. Can you tell maybe I am a very skilled day trader? But everything has a bubble. At some point, it goes down. Sir Isaac Newton wasn't wrong. Sports has never taken a backward step in terms of popularity, ratings, revenue, player compensation, and the amount of star power, the gigawatts for the luminaries is even brighter. So here's LeBron, not going anywhere. In terms of basketball, the Nuggets apparently have faded. So if we're looking at the top of the now smaller pack, it is the suspects that made the most sense from the beginning. Go back to Cleveland. And from a basketball standpoint, certainly that elevates the Cavs, who had a tremendous year before they ran into the Knicks, who rolled through them, sweeping them in the conference finals. Remember, Cleveland was the 1 seed in the East 2 years ago and underachieved, so that's marginal progress. Harden is a nightmare come playoff time, but if you follow the NBA during the regular season, and clearly I do, he does move the ball. He's a good assist man, and you got Donovan Mitchell, who just got a Supermax deal, so the face of the franchise once LeBron passes the torch. They would be a top 3 team, in my opinion, in the East. Miami is the least attractive of these boxes that we're checking, other than Giannis plus LeBron is intriguing. You got Bam doing his thing in the paint, but they got a lot of holes on the roster that could be filled by Bronny James. The Warriors, if we're just talking about stories to tell, and LeBron looking for happiness, he'd be happy in Napa with Steph, drinking wine, having a good time on the private plane. LeBron and Steph and Draymond, and then you bank on Jimmy Butler coming back from the torn ACL midseason. That's a top 4 team in the West. To me, Philadelphia is the best destination, not only from that story aspect I mentioned, because LeBron fancies himself a storyteller. Sixers haven't won a title since 1983, but if you're just going through the core unit that LeBron could join, Joel Embiid, who is made of glass, but occasionally when he's out there, you know why he won an MVP award. Jaylen Brown, with the added motivation of feeling like he got discarded by the Celtics after carrying them in the regular season, finished number 6 in the MVP balloting. An emerging star in Maxey, who earned all NBA honors for a reason, and Edgecombe had a very solid rookie year. And with that, let me exhale, let you just wash that over. You didn't think Tony Orlando would pop up, huh? On the ceiling, if you want me. We'll get back to the NBA coming up in 25 minutes. Kurt Helin will give us his analysis of what this Kawhi Leonard decision means, and we'll get the latest from Summer League, which tips off tonight. One obligatory LeBron question, and then I will do my best to be more balanced. Coming up, you demand more football. I work for you. The audience is never wrong. We've got interaction on the way. Plus, we're a dozen days away from NFL training camps opening. Have the Cowboys now entered the chat based on their offseason moves to be among the most improved teams in all of football? That is coming up. I'm Brian Weber, hoping to get a telethon going, and when I do, I'll just steal this number, 1-800-636-8686. It is always fun to keep the chair warm for the Hall of Famer as we continue here on The Jim Rome Show.
You're listening to The Jim Rome Show.
Brian Weber back with you. Home stretch on a Thursday. Meeting my pal Adam Rank, getting ready for his 3-hour audio and video extravaganza. Depending on how you're consuming the program, that's coming up tomorrow. Then Jim, the Hall of Famer, back from vacation on Monday. That means I got to pick up the tempo even more. 15 minutes, NBA analysis when we take you live to Vegas, site of the Summer League. When we're joined by Kurt Helin, I should say the Vegas Summer League, because you know Sacramento's going to get a little bit miffed if I don't allude to what has happened there in the past. Now moving to San Francisco. And you have the Salt Lake Summer League. I need to get some hobbies. Kurt Helin, we'll talk NBA. You read his work at NBCSports.com. Cowboys conversation, not just looking for cheap heat, not just trying to get anybody to stir the pot. I have actual firm beliefs about the Cowboys' improvement, and I cannot believe that they're going to be coming out of my pie hole. But remember, the sign of intelligence is you can have two conflicting thoughts and still read the reaction. Now, clearly, Tommy is watching the soccer game that I'm not going to allude to in terms of the score or time, because Dino in Vegas gets through. I'm not going to play the song again, although it is such a good ditty. It's been 40 long years. Do you still want me? Tony Orlando. Dino, well played. Take the rest of the show off. Dion, not the crooner from Philadelphia, not hanging out with Fabian, Frankie Valli. Did B-Web buy the shirt to match the hair or the other way around? Okay, I'm going to produce on the air. Lauren and Nick, if you have a moment, go to my Twitter, X feed, but I don't work for Elon. BW Weber, Weber with 2 B's. I made a recent photo change. In fact, I'll take you behind the curtain. There was a bit that was planned to come up in 10 minutes. I'm not going to name the person because I know you clones, you're savages, you're going to go track them down. But somebody who has been featured on this program for one of my terrible play-by-play calls in the past was scheduled to join us, and then there was a problem with the technology. In advance of that, and also my vanity, I went back, anytime now, fellas, as I now get the wrath from Lauren and Nick, I went back and found a headshot of me calling an event for the old College Sports TV network. And the whole point of this long-winded dissertation is I'm hanging in there in my mid-50s. Now, either I started dyeing my hair or bought my hairpiece there. That is 21 years ago. Now, don't push in, Lauren. We'll just stay there. Now, kids, let me tell you something, since I was going back to 1979 with Tony Orlando. There was a thing called Moose. Is Moose still around? I'm sure it's going to come back, right? Headed on frame and in! Close. It's over just that quickly. This show was over about 10 minutes ago. So, you be the judge. Now, I was not wearing a black shirt there. I think my hair is blue, actually, because I was cheap then and I was dyeing it myself. But, yes, I appreciate, thank you, crew, for getting that done on the fly. We should have worked that out during rehearsal at 4 o'clock in the morning. I appreciate your interest in my follicle situation. Arizona has a 3-0 lead. 3-0. Speaking of which, 0-0. Oh, there's a goal. I'm not going to tell you the score because I need you to stay with me. I didn't say put Bob Big Boy up, all right? Please. Now, speaking of Moose, I was not moosing in 1977. I might bring that hair back. Why not? I got nothing less to lose. I should do the Costanza. Nothing is working here. Let's go opposite to try to change the outcome. Weber with 2 chins. All right, this is what I'm used to. I'm surprised you aren't stealing the huge fact segment. Yours, the broken antique laptop on more pagers and answering machines. Well played, Jay, in the STL. You don't want 8-track in there? You want a Betamax to round it out? Ken and essay. Doctor, what do you have in mind? Webbs. We would rather have soccer fever than the dreaded equalizer. Yours, the people of Michigan. I'll take that. Paul, 191969. Hey, Brian, I bring advice to you on possibly your last hosting day. Do you know something I don't know? Is it already out there? During negotiations, bring a carrot, apples, and sugar cube to the table. Bam, you win. Works for me every wrestling night. Signed, Matthew B. We'll give the local affiliate some love. War 11:70 a.m. K-Pug. War Brian returning. Just going to let that marinate for a second. And with that, we move to the National Football League, because I'm told if we don't talk at least a little football every hour, there's no reason to have a program. And I understand the NFL is a behemoth. If you have any idea of my background, come on, how much mileage have I gotten from a cup of coffee at NFL Network eons ago? So I am not being more insular than normal. I am not trying to avoid talking about the NFL. I'm just trying to pace ourselves, because once we start, it's like when you get out of college, once you start working, theoretically, you never stop. Now, the problem is, can you get a job now? Thanks, AI. Once you start talking NFL, once camps open up, we don't take a breath until May. It is a steamroller that has crushed everything in its path, and part of that comes down to allegedly America's team, which was always just a marketing slogan that was devised by NFL Films. Before I give the Cowboys some praise, context matters. When's the last time they made it to a conference title game? Bet a minute, 1996. Won 7 games last year. That number is actually semi-impressive, because they had the worst defense in all of football, one of the most grisly lack of output on that side of the football we've seen in years. Hence, the Eberflus got flused. So an upgrade in terms of mindset and game plan with a new defensive coordinator, Christian Parker, coming over from the Eagles, and that Vic Fangio coaching tree. Cowboys used their first round picks, 2 of them, on defense. I know a lot of you are just sort of easing back into football and probably aren't aware of moves like picking up edge rusher Rashawn Gary. When I mentioned the draft, one of those players that went early, Caleb Downs, all the talking heads that used to play are indicating they think he could be the best defensive rookie of them all, even though the safety position now has been devalued. So what's that all mean? First, you got to give Jerry some credit. Now, I'm not saying he fully circumcised the mosquito, which is tough to do, but at least he got the scalpel ready. And expectations for this team are so low now, primarily because the owner who demands to be the GM for ego and vanity reasons has driven them into mediocrity. But when he takes a step back and listens to his quote-unquote football people, as appears to be the case in this cycle, good things can happen. Now, they're still in a division with a Philadelphia team that's in flux, but the Cowboys' offense, especially now with the added incentive for George Pickens to be a model citizen and keep his opinions to himself, because he's playing for the next contract after Jerry handled that franchise tag situation appropriately, which he has butchered so many times in the past, and George realizing he had no leverage or option, so he took the tag. Problem solved, because how many years in the summer, especially with the Dak situation, have we devoted time, effort, and real estate to, will this Cowboy show up for camp? How disgruntled are, quote-unquote, the usual suspects? Dak. Remember Michael Parsons last summer? Well, as much of a game changer as he was for the Packers before unfortunately got hurt, Jera did pretty well in that trade. I'm not justifying the move, but the assets he got in return have proven to be difference makers, including friend of the program, Quinnen Williams. So, if the Cowboys can have an adequate defense, and they can't be worse than last year, it's just a statistical impossibility. If that defense can show up occasionally, and the if factor always comes down to health, that Cowboys offense was so locked in last year. At a minimum, I think they take a step forward from 7 wins. They're a playoff team. And to me, the most fascinating question in that division hinges on Philadelphia. what is the offense going to look like with the change to Sean Mannion as the play caller, part of the Sean McVay wave of talent in the coaching circles across the league. This is a show-up year or else for Jalen Hurts. Not to get into all of the details of the contract, but this is his last year of big guaranteed money, and the team, understandably, chose him over A.J. Brown, as any team would. As much of a dynamic wide receiver A.J. is, wide receivers in this time and space in the NFL are a dime a dozen. I cannot recall a different chapter in the NFL with so much playmaking talent spread across the league so evenly. And whatever the reason for the rift was, like Tony Orlando had to go solo and just didn't talk to Don anymore. Remember, Don was two people. It was the 70s. Nothing made sense. AJ got his wish. Howie Roseman did the best he could under that tenuous circumstance to get something in return. And now Jalen Hurts has to deliver. And some of that comes down to, I was almost going to say trust the process, but it was just too lame and too Philly-centric, believing in his teammates and the scheme. Because I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan, but even I have to acknowledge that he's too risk-averse, which makes sense in a league in which, if you care about numbers, look at turnover margin. And I don't do advanced analytics. I can barely balance my checkbook. And I know that's shocking to you that I still use a pen, and I get that nifty toaster at the end of the year. It's very exciting. I don't care about the math that much, but just watching these games every Sunday, you see missed opportunities. You see if Hurts didn't look towards taking an outside shot because he's afraid to throw it across the middle, in my estimation, because he doesn't want to turn it over. Well, if you're going to be considered amongst the handful of top quarterbacks, however you want to slot them, you got to take more chances. So Philadelphia is a team in flux, knowing that Dallas will find a way to screw it up because they typically do. But since we haven't even started the regular season, I don't want to bury them just yet. I don't want to be that lazy with the analysis. I am not as sold on the New York Football Giants as a lot of pundits are, in part because I think Harbaugh did not evolve, did not change anything towards the end of his run in Baltimore. Yes, they consistently made the playoffs, but never even got back to the Super Bowl. And I need to see more good decisions. I'm not talking about off the field. I'm talking about staying upright from Jackson Dart. You like the risk-taking. You like the aggressiveness, but you don't want your quarterback to get decapitated. And Scadaboo just seems like an interesting dude. I'll leave it there. Now, it's not a academic decathlon. You just care about him getting in the end zone. He's got to get healthy in the first place. But while I do think the Giants take a step forward, we'll find out about Malik Neighbors coming back from the injury. Folks who are looking for them to be the Patriots of this year, I don't think it's the case. In part because of their division. I don't think they're going to blow past either Dallas or Philadelphia. And in part because there are still flaws across that roster. So, can't believe I'm saying it. I'm saying it in a loud, always loud, in a clear voice. Cowboys belong on that short list of the most improved teams in the NFL. What does that mean? At least they play off berth. And then we can talk about the Cowboys going Cowboys and finding a way to screw it up when it matters the most. I'm Brian Weber in for Jim as we close in on the Power Pack conclusion of the program, talking a bit more NBA. Why is the holdup in the Kawhi Leonard deal presenting itself now? Why did the NBA make this clear a week ago when this deal got done in principle? Take it live to Vegas. Check in with my good friend, Kurt Helin, lead NBA writer for NBCSports.com. That is on the way. My name is Brian Weber. I'm in for Jim. This is The Jim Rome Show.
You're listening to The Jim Rome Show.
Brian Weber back with you. It's been an absolute delight to fill in for the Hall of Famer Jim Rome the last 2 days. And let's wrap it up on a very high note. Take it to Vegas. Say hello to my good friend Kurt Heelan, lead NBA writer for NBCSports.com. He's there because Summer League's about to get underway in Nevada. Kurt, thank you for taking the time. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, just started a few minutes ago. You're keeping me from watching Carter Bryant. Very important stuff.
This is the business we have chosen. And guess what? It gets worse. I'm going to ask you now, I'm going to leverage our friendship, to explain why the NBA did not step in a week ago when the deal was made in principle between the Clippers and the Raptors sending Kawhi to Toronto. Why are they pausing it now?
What happened is it's actually the Raptors who put it on hold, but because the league went to them and said, look, if Kawhi is suspended or whatever might happen to Kawhi, that now falls on you if you approve this trade. And Toronto's like, all right, I'm not taking that risk, which is what the league knew they would do. And you're right. They should have, this could have easily been, I don't want to say avoided. You could have announced this at the time, and I think it would have been understood by everyone. But to let them go through this process, get to the point where they're ready to finalize it and then do it is just, it's an unnecessary, stubbing of the toe.
Ultimately, do you think the deal gets done?
Oh, yeah. Look, what I've heard is that there will be punishments and pretty harsh ones potentially on the Clippers. Like they're going to come after the Clippers. But Kawhi, not so much. Like he's going to get off relatively free here. I mean, what can you do to him? Void his contract so he signs a new one with Toronto that's massive? That's not really a punishment. That was going to happen anyway. He's going to get an extension. So I don't think they see a method to effectively punish Kawhi. They suspend him for a few games, but I don't think it's going to be that bad. Where this gets interesting with the trade is if that suspension is much harsher than I'm expecting or I'm hearing. It's all a little bit of speculation, but what I'm hearing, if it's 25 games or more, then Toronto's going to want to rethink that deal.
Okay, and based on your sourcing and years of experience, it's informed speculation. I'm Brian Weber, in for Jim. We're talking NBA with Kurt Heelan of NBCSports.com. You know, I got to ask you about LeBron, so let's go with destination first. Where do you think, again, informed speculation, where do you think he's most likely to go?
Real Madrid? No, I think it's Cleveland. We're all reading the tea leaves. He's very good at keeping them close to the vest. He and Rich Paul, they've done this, frankly, through each of their free agencies. They've kept the circle tight, and there's not a lot of leakage. But the tea leaves seem to point towards a return to Cleveland, a team where he's going to be able to be comfortable, where they're going to be welcoming him back, where he can look. Part of this is where he can do the documentary or episodic television. You know, there's going to be cameras all around him. However that ends up being broadcast, you're going to have that going on. And by the way, he reached the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And what they needed was somebody who could step up consistently in the playoffs, like we just saw LeBron do at age 41 when he put them past the Houston Rockets with, Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves up. So I like the fit all around. I think it's just kind of the best of the options, and I expect that to be it. But if it's Miami, maybe even Philly, it wouldn't be shocking.
Well, you mentioned Philly. What did you make of Bob Myers, who's a very bright guy, going on Rich Paul's show and having his sales pitch directly to LeBron about taking his talents to the Sixers?
Look, if it's just about winning and just about basketball, then Philadelphia's the spot, right? Like that team you're banking your championship bet, frankly, on Joel Embiid's knees. But you're going to do that anyway if you go to Philly. And frankly, if you're going to Cleveland, you're banking a little on Harden and all that. You can plug him straight in with Dean Wade's probably the starting four. Now you plug him straight in. It looks beautiful. Ryan Windhorst asked this earlier, though, and I think it's the question everyone around the league's asking. Does he want to live in Philly? Would he be happy in Philly? Is he going to get along well with the Philadelphia fan base when it gets frustrated with him? I don't know if that's the experience he wants to end on.
And those are fair questions to pose. I try to listen closely. I noticed you didn't mention the Warriors. So if no LeBron comes to the San Francisco Bay Area, do you sense they have any other moves in mind?
they will keep looking, but I think their biggest move is Jimmy Butler gets healthy at some point mid-season and comes back. There's not much else out there for them, and they are not trading away future picks for another win now move. They would like to put a team that's a little more competitive around Curry because they realize where they are. They understand it, but at the end of the day, they're not going to. They know the transition's coming. Everyone it does, and they're not giving up future picks and a bunch of their assets to try to put together one kind of futile run.
Kurt Helin of NBCSports.com is our guest in the Jim Rome Show. Vegas not only is the gathering spot of young talent, all of you basketball royalty, journalists, executives, agents gather. What are you hearing about the possibility of a Jonathan Kuminga sign and trade from Atlanta to the Lakers?
That seems to be it's kind of a hot topic out here. It just started today, but like it's come up a few times. I'm curious if the Lakers would really, if it comes down to this, would they really put basically the last first round pick swap they have in a deal for Jonathan Kuminga? Do you believe? I mean, they like Jonathan Kuminga. He brings athleticism. He can score. Like he can do things that Jared Vanderbilt can't on offense. I've also seen him play basketball. How much do you want to invest in betting on the future of Jonathan Kuminga? Is that worth a first to you? I'll just say a couple of people I talked to here shook their head and said, no, I wouldn't throw my last first in for that. I would save it for something more important because there will be something. They're going to still have to tweak this roster around Luka. This will not be the end of it. They might want to save their pick for something down the line.
And because you're actually working and I'm just flapping my gums, I'm going to be respectful of your time. Just one more. Who are you most interested in?
Many as you want.
Who are you most interested in seeing playing in Vegas in the Summer League? What young talent stands out to you?
Well, I saw Peterson in Utah. I was in Salt Lake before this, and he's real. Like it is legit. He is explosive, and I've had people with some front offices who said basically, look, we had DeBonsa and Peterson on the same tier. Like he could very well be the best player out of this class. He certainly looked it. So I think that first off, that's what everybody wants to see tonight. It's going to be broadcast. Wizards versus Jazz, DeBonsa versus Peterson. It's going to be, and Ace Bailey will be out there as well for the Jazz. That's going to be an entertaining game. But I want to see some of the other picks, especially Caleb Wilson. He is not somebody I've seen in person yet, and all-world potential and athlete on tape. And I'm excited to see him in person. And some of the fun part of this is where you find the Jeremy Lins and the Austin Reeves. And I don't know who that guy is, but there's always one where by the end of it, you're like, who is this guy? How did he go undrafted? Why has somebody not found this person?
Kurt, I know you made the time to do this in the midst of a busy day, so I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for joining us once more. Are they feeding you? What is the hospitality setup in the media room in Nevada?
You would be disappointed, Brian. They ran out of water quickly.
Well, hang on. We know a lot of people in the profession steal water. In fairness.
Yes. So, in fairness, there is there's plenty of soda and stuff, but you are left to the look. Here was the thing that John Hollinger and I had to do early today. We had to get to the Dairy Queen in the concourse before other people in the line got waiting.
Because sports media members always eat clean. Thank you, Kurt. Greatly appreciate it. Enjoy your time in Vegas.
Take care.
That's Kurt Helin, great friend of mine, and I appreciate him pausing his actual job duties to give you some good thoughts there. The clarification on the Raptors stepping in, saying, let's not go forward with the Kawhi deal till we get some clarity on any discipline that will be coming his direction. But as Kurt hinted at, doesn't seem like the league can or wants to do much to Kawhi on an individual level. It is interesting. At this stage of my career, what's left of it, I don't have to go to sporting events as much as I used to when I was doing local TV and radio in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 90s. I did notice a shift. That's why I brought up the food angle, not just to be more glib than normal. Teams stopped providing free food for those of us who covered the club, in part because, and I witnessed this with my own eyes, Candlestick Park, don't look for it, it's gone now, right by the 101 on your way to the city. I would witness people for day games. They play a lot of matinees, did the Giants in that era, because at least the sun was shining. It was 52 degrees as the wind's coming off the bay, but they play a lot of matinees. And I knew mostly newspaper reporters, I'm not taking shots at them, but they're all retired or gone by now, so there'll be no blowback, who would drive out to the park to eat lunch. And then I saw a guy put not one but two sandwiches in his pocket and walk out back to his car. So if I witnessed that, and the Giants weren't rolling in dough, they gave it all to Barry Bonds, it struck me as, yeah, this is coming to an end. Actually, a metaphor for the industry. And now Kurt says they're running out of water. Some of the stereotypes about those of us in the media are true. Hopefully not all of them, especially for a fill-in host, right? We don't, as I go Royal Week, we don't talk about ourselves too much. We don't make you think about decades ago. We stay present, locked in to the here, and now, dare I say, locked and loaded. As we wind down, now I can let you know, as the final minutes are coming up off the clock, France on their way to a 2-0 victory over Morocco, and I've addressed the soccer. A lot of people to thank. In fact, I'm going to do it in a much more leisurely pace and approach than I normally do when I'm grabbing my hat and running out the door. Want to start with Jim Rome. Means a great deal to me, especially in the summertime, because I'll take you back to my clone origin story, in addition to listening for all those years in San Francisco. Around this time in 2003, when I had the moose tear, I was living with my mother in her condo in Palm Springs, where it was 117 degrees, getting ready for graduate school. My career was over, I thought. I was not in a good mental place, and this show kept me going. So it means more to me than I can convey, even with all the words, to have the opportunity to pitch in. Also, to see the team, and now they can pay attention. No, they're not. They're still tuning me out. Thanks to Alex, Tommy, Alvin, and the fellas across the hall. I know their names, Lorne and Nick. My name is Brian Weber. I want you to keep it dialed in, because Adam Rank is here tomorrow. Rankamania running while Jim's back on Monday. Don't point at me. On the Jim Rome Show.